Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Macs and iPads and why the two should never become one. The computer industry today is definitely leaning towards mobile devices. Now, it's not just iPhones, it's iPads, it's Surfaces, it's Android tablets. Now, with that divergence and motion towards the more mobile environment, a lot of people are speculating that Apple will one day merge the two lines, the iPad line and the Mac line, into one. And I, for one, am totally against it. And here's why. Unlike the Surface, which from the beginning was somewhat, as far as I'm concerned, half-baked. It was neither a full tablet nor was it a regular PC. There are certain things that don't work that well because it's kind of trying to blend the two worlds. And for what it's worth, they're getting a lot of the kinks out. The newer Surfaces are a little more intuitive. The apps are a little easier to run. There's definitely improvements. But with the Mac and the PC line, there is a distinctly different environment going on here. And my opinion on this is this. If Apple at some point releases a touchscreen version of the Mac, I am all for the idea that a Mac would and should have the ability to run iPad apps. And the reason for this is pretty simple. I'm an application developer. I write software for a living. So whenever somebody writes a iPhone or iPad app or even a watch app or even the Apple TV app, they actually build it on a Mac. So to do that, there are simulators that you run that essentially give you the full capability of the device, meaning that an app developer like me already has the ability to run iPad apps on a Mac through a simulator. The only thing it can't do right now is simulate accurately the way you would use the touchscreen. It can be done, it's just a little awkward to do. So the point is there are already simulators that'll do that. So I'm all for the idea that maybe at one point Apple could make the simulator a built-in feature of Mac OS to allow Macs to run iPad and iOS apps in general, meaning iPhone apps. That I could see happening. But I don't think it should ever happen in reverse. And there's a solid reason for that. The iOS platform was designed from the beginning to be entirely different. You don't have a traditional file system where you store your files. You don't have a traditional no-holds-barred approach to just placing files arbitrarily anywhere within that file system. So, you could store your Word documents in the same folder. You might store your Pages documents in the same folder you store your Excel documents, or for that matter, your photos and videos. There are logical places where you might want to store those, but they're not imposed on you. Whereas the iOS market, the iOS platform from the beginning was designed with dedicated places for things like photos and videos. It's in the Photos app and it has a photo space. There's dedicated places where they store media, well, specifically just more or less music and music videos and things of that nature. There's also places where they store books like iBooks. And you have certain ability within an app to authorize specific apps to either have access to or not have access to your media libraries. But other than that, they don't want you mingling your files together. If you wanted to do that, you have to actually use a totally different concept, which is an iCloud folder structure or maybe something like Dropbox. But the point being is that is one of the reasons why you don't see viruses on an iOS device. You basically are putting each program in its own little quarantine space, and apps can only get there from the App Store, whereas the Mac, it's not going to go that way. So for that reason, I feel that the Mac platform should always be different from the iPad app, the iOS, that is, platform. And I do feel it would be a great thing, especially if Apple releases a touchscreen Mac one day, to allow a Mac user to run both Mac programs and iOS programs. And that's today's idea of the day. All right, so that's today's idea of the day. I hope you liked it. If you visit ideaoftheday.com, you'll see a new one every day. Every day. Yeah, some of them don't suck. And don't forget to subscribe. And you can see them here every day. Brand new one. And some of my videos don't suck either.